All right. Well, good morning, everybody. This section is on 5.4 in your consumer math books on simple interest. Now, in your savings accounts, one of the things that they will do is that they will calculate interest for you. As we talked about with your checking account, sometimes we have interest paid on. This is going to be how it gets calculated to actually add you some money. What they do is the interest formula that we're going to use today looks like this. I equals P times R times T. Now I stands for interest. That's the money that you earn from your account. Okay, so when you put money into an account, it earns interest. The P stands for principal. Now when you're dealing with banking terms, principal is the amount of money that you start with. R is the rate. That's the interest rate. That's always as a percent. Okay, just so that you know that. And T stands for time. And it's always time in years. Okay. So for this particular case, if we're dealing with 6 months, we're going to have to put 6 out of 12. Or if it's dealing with the number of days, if it says daily, we're going to do like 10 over 365, because there's 365 days in a year. So that is the formula that you're going to be using. I'm going to walk you through the first 4 before I turn you loose with the assignment. Number 1 says that your principal is $400. The annual interest rate is 6%. And it wants to know how much is in there after 3 months. Okay, so the way we set this up is we want I equals 400, because that's the principal, times by 0.06, and the reason why it's 0.06 is because we're using the decimal equivalent to 6%. And then you're going to times it by 3 divided by 12. Now again, the reason why divided by 12 is because there's 12 months in a year, and we're talking about after 3 months. So when I multiply this, what I will do is I'll take 400 times 0.06 times 3, get a number, and then I will divide it by 12. For me, I've just, especially with the basic calculator, it just is a little bit easier. Instead of converting that 3/12 into a fraction, and then you have to deal with fractions and get confused by it, I'm trying to make it easier on you. So once you do all that, you get 72. And when you divide it by 12, you end up with 6. So that means that that particular account, after 3 months, earned $6 in interest. Okay? On number 2, it says that your principal is $1,500. Your rate is 2.5%, and it wants to know how much is in there after 6 months. So again, I'm going to take 1,500 times 0.025, which means I got to move the decimal place over 2 spots. That's why I'm doing that again. And then I'm going to multiply it by 6 over 12. Again, why 12? Because there's 12 months in a year. So if I take 1,500 times 0.025 times 6, I get 225. And then 225 divided by 12 ends up being $18.75. So that's how much money I earned in interest from that account. So that's our interest formula that we have first, we figured out the simple interest part of it. Then from here, on 3 and 4, we're going to deal with daily amounts. So now the difference is going to be, where on this one we had 12 because there was 12 months in a year. This next one we're going to have 365 come in here because we're dealing with the number of days. So on number 3, for part A, it has $2,000 in your account, multiplied by 0.03, because that's giving you the rate, times by 12 divided by 365. Now when I do this to calculate it, I'm going to do the 2,000 times the 0.03 times the 12, and then divide everything by 365. And that gives me $1.97. Part B, this time we're at $3,000 into our account. 0.03 still, but this time it's on there for 8 days. So what happened was after the 12th day, I deposited another $1,000 in my account. So now it's up to $3,000. So I take 3,000 times 0.03 times 8, and then divide it by 365, and again I get $1.97. Then for part C, we're at $2,500. We're still at 0.03, and this time it's 5 over 365 because we're at 5 days for that. So what happened is I took $500 out of my account to use for something. Maybe I wanted to buy, I don't know, anything else other than what I had the money for. And after I multiply that all out and divide it by 365, I get $1.03. Then for part D, it looks like we're back down to $2,000 in our account. So again, we've used $500 for whatever we wanted to. Maybe it was a trip or something. And then multiplying that all out, I get 99 cents. Part E, it wants you to make the total interest, which means I'm going to add those four numbers together. Okay, so once I add those four numbers up, I end up with $5.96. And then for part F, it says what's the total in the amount in the account? Well, at the end of the month, we have $2,000 into our account, but we're also going to add to it the interest that's over there. So $2,000 plus $5.96 is $2,005.96. Do not add all these numbers up together, because that is, as the money is going into and coming out of your account, what the balance or what the principal is at the time. It's not saying that you're depositing $2,000, $3,000, $2,500, and $2,000 total. You're just you had $2,000 at the start, you deposited $1,000, then you took out $500, then you took out $500 is what that's saying. And a lot of people screw that up, but that last answer should just be whatever the last balance is, plus whatever interest you get. On number 4, it doesn't have it in the chart form, but that's what I'm going to make. It says on May 1st, Geraldo Saldana opened a savings account that paid 3.5% interest at Fulton Savings Bank with the deposit of $3,600. So $3,600 times 0.035 times, and it said 10 days later he deposited something, so that was in there for 10 days. So that's where I'm getting this amount for, is because they said it was there for 10 days. So when I multiply that all together and divide it by 365, I get $3.45. Then it goes on to say because he deposited $3,000 more, this is where you take $3,600 plus $3,000, and that's where I get the $6,600 times by 0.035, and then the timeline says 14 days later, which means the 14 goes under the over top of the 365. So when I multiply that all out and divide it, I end up with $8.86. Then it says he deposited another $5,000. So that's where again we're going to add $5,000 here, and that's how I got this number, was I added $3,000. So when I do that, I get $11,600. I times it by 0.035, and it told me 6 days that money was in the account. It said 6 days later at the end. So then when I multiply that all together, I get $6.67. These three numbers right here need to be added together to give you the total interest earned. When you do that, you get $18.98. So part B wants to know how much is in the account total. So I ended with $11,600 in my account. I'm adding to it the interest that we earned for a grand total of plus $18.98 gives me $11,618.98. That was the grand total for how much money should be in my account for part B. This part over here was part A. That was the amount of the interest. Part B was how much should be in my account at the end. You're doing the same things all the way for 5 through 9. To get part A, you just multiply the principal times the rate, and then you multiply it by the time to give you part B. Same thing for 10 through 14. So your assignment is starting on page 206 to 207, 1 through 14. All right? And if you have any questions, you can ask me tomorrow, but I think that should help you anyway in case you need it. So anyway, see you guys tomorrow. Bye.